Welcome back to DaBoot Tragedies. We're going to talk about the rest of the defensive line today. I've already done Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport. That's kind of the highlights of the defensive line. But we're going to get into everybody else from David Onyemata, Shai Tuttle, Kentavious Street, Peyton Turner, and much more. Now, before we jump into anybody specifically, let's talk about this unit as a whole. This unit I came into the season with high expectations for. Very high expectations. I don't think they even got close. I don't think they got close to fulfilling those expectations that I put on them, which means nothing in the grand scheme. But this unit just did not play well. We gave up way too many rush yards. The pass rush came and went as the Saints have been for the last 2 or 3 seasons. And it just was very, very bad as a unit. A bunch of guys I thought would have, breakout years or step-up kind of years, a guy that would step up to the plate and, do something. They just didn't. Now, let's take a peek at some of these stats. The rush defense, absolutely awful. Bottom 10 rush defense, bottom 8 rush defense. Gave up 2,218 yards on the ground. It's only 17 games. 4.5 yards to carry. Very, very bad rush defense this year from the Saints. And we've been known to have a very, very good rush defense. But this year, it just wasn't there. It just wasn't there at all. Now we get into some more stats, and this stat right here is kind of misleading. I'll be honest. I'll give them credit, but it's definitely misleading. The Saints finished 6th in the NFL, or actually tied for 5th. No, actually tied for 6th in the NFL with sacks this season. They finished with 48 sacks. Teams that led the league, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Patriots, the Ravens, and then the Saints tied with the Ravens with 48 sacks. Now, that's great. Don't get me wrong. But I'm going to give a lot of that credit. A lot of that credit goes to the secondary, goes to the linebacking core for being locked down and coverage. And when I do the secondary, you'll understand why. You'll understand why, man. The secondary was very, very elite this year, even though we had our mishaps. When you look at the numbers, you look at the plays, we were very, very good against the pass. And that just gave the defensive line more time to get to the quarterback. But the pass rush came and went, but we do have to give them credit. They did finish 6th. In sacks. They did finish 6th in sacks. I know we had not a lot, but some linebacker sacks in there as well. But as a unit, the pass rush, I guess, was okay this season. I still expect more. We've invested way too much into that defensive line. So I'm not going to be satisfied with 6 just because I know that secondary was a big cause of that. Just like the Eagles. The Eagles were number 1 in sacks this year. But a lot of that is because they had the number 1 pass defense in the league. The Saints had the number 2 pass defense in the league. So obviously, if your secondary is playing that well, your defensive line is going to get there. And the Eagles they had 70 sacks, and I think second was 50. They also were winning a lot of games, so teams had to throw the ball against them. Now let's jump into some players specifically. So we can just start off with David Onyemata, right in the middle, a defensive tackle, a guy that's a very good player, a guy that I said, was the most underrated player on the Saints defense for a long time. This year, I just don't think he lived up to his expectations. He's been a very, very good player for us. His contract is up now. I don't think he put the best season together in a contract season. That's unfortunate for him. I think him and Marcus Davenport's they're in the same boat. They both, have potential, have played well at moments, but this year they just didn't live up to expectations, and they were not good this year. That's on the right side of our defensive line. Onyemata and Davenport were just not good this year. We just have to be honest. Now, this is coming with high expectations, especially for David Onyemata. Like I said, I've always thought of him as one of the better players on this defense, so my expectations are high for him. Looking at his numbers this year, they were solid. I just don't think he did enough in the run game, but played in all 17 games, started all 17 games. We can salute him for that, especially with the injuries we've had on the defensive line. 43 total tackles, 25 solo, 18 assisted, 5 tackles for loss. I would like him to have a little more than that. 11 quarterback hits, that's pretty solid. He did have 5 sacks as well, so you have to, give him a clap for that. He was 4th on the team in sacks behind Cam Jordan, Caden Ellis, and Demario Davis. So we'll get to that. Caden Ellis had 7 sacks, Demario Davis had 6.5. That's why I said that sack number was very misleading. You got linebackers that's 2nd and 3rd on the team in sacks, but we'll get to the linebacker group when we get to the linebacker group. This is about the defensive line so far. And who's 4th on the list? The next guy up, Carl Granderson, who I think was the guy that shined the most on the defensive line this year. Not going to say he was the best player, but he sure performed super solid. Was definitely the 2nd best behind Cam Jordan by far. This man played in 16 games, only started 4, had 5.5 sacks, which was 2nd on the defensive line. 2nd, 53 total tackles, 30 solo tackles, 23 assists, and 9 tackles for loss. Also 2nd on the defensive line. He was basically 2nd on the defensive line in every category. Every last category behind Cam Jordan. He was easily, and I want to say very, very easily, our 2nd best defensive lineman. And he's honestly earned the right to start over there at that right defensive end spot. He's honestly earned that right. He was the most consistent. He was getting constant pass rush when he was there. He was good against the run. He was making plays, dropping into coverage sometimes. He was honestly our second best pass rusher. Second best defensive lineman, not even pass rusher. So shout out to Carl Granderson. He was definitely like the most improved player on this team. Then we go Kentavious Street. We'll just go down the list. Kentavious Street had 3.5 sacks, played in 17 games. Didn't start any, but 29 total tackles, 16 solo. 5 tackles for loss. He was in a backup role. He came in pass rush situations, but I think he played well. He's not an every down lineman, and he's a defensive tackle, so the stats aren't going to look crazy. But I think in his role, he did play, well enough. I was advocating for him to start just because he gives you so much more versatility than Shy Tuttle, who's more of a run stopper. And we wasn't stopping the run. So if we're not stopping the run, I was definitely calling for Shy Tuttle's job. And I think he could be the next person we talk about. 17 games for Shy Tuttle, started 14, had 2 sacks. Like I said, he's not really a pass rush guy. He's more there to stop the run. But we didn't really stop the run this year. He only had 1 tackle for loss, so he's not really getting penetration. I know you're facing a lot of double teams at the defensive tackle spot, so I get it. But I expected much more from Shy Tuttle this year. 27 years old, in the prime of his career, but he just didn't perform. He just didn't perform to my expectations. The one thing I did notice about Shy Tuttle, he did get a lot of pass deflections. He was pretty good at getting his hands up. He had 5 this season. 5 pass deflection, which led to defensive line. So he was definitely good at that. He wasn't really getting pass rush, but when they did throw it, he would get his hands up sometimes and do that. So that was good to see. We're going to talk about Tano. He had 2 sacks this year, limited role. He's playing behind Cam Jordan. What you expect? You're not going to really touch the field. Then you got Peyton Turner. Oh, where do we begin? Where do we begin with Peyton Turner? He played in 8 games this season, started 0, had 2 sacks. 2 sacks on his year. First round pick, by the way. 16 total tackles, 11 solo, 5 tackles for loss, 6 quarterback hits. 3 quarterback hits, not 6. Just not good. He's just not a good NFL player, let's be honest. He's been injured. It's only his second year, but his first 2 years, he's done jack shit. Now, I don't want to go on a Peyton Turner rant. I promise I don't want to go on a Peyton Turner rant right now, but he's been awful. At least with Davenport, we saw flashes. He jumped off the screen. We maybe he can be some Peyton Turner. Outside of his first game in his NFL career, he showed us absolutely nothing. Not a thing. Not a thing. He had a 2 sack, 3.5 tackles for loss or something like that against the Panthers in his NFL debut. And outside of that, he's done nothing. He's done absolutely nothing, Peyton Turner. And it's just awful to watch. We're going to miss on back-to-back defensive end picks. We had Trey Hendrickson in the building, but we let him go. We let him go because we had Davenport. And, we used 2 first-round picks to get him. And then we drafted Peyton Turner right after. He was supposed to be the heir to Cam Jordan. That's definitely not going to happen. Look at this man's career stats. Let's look at his career stats. Peyton Turner, 13 games played, 0 starts, 3 total sacks, 28 total tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 6 quarterback hits. It's been 2 seasons. He's on the Cesar Ruiz pad. The first 2 seasons has been awful. But what Ruiz showed me this year is that 3rd season is going to be make or break for him. So I won't kill him too much, even though he's played awful and he has, no right to be spared right here because he's been bad. He's been that bad. But that 3rd year, that's going to be the make or break year. That's obviously going to be the make or break year. Ruiz turned it around in year 3, so hopefully Peyton Turner can find some miracle and do it. I'm not getting my hopes up on that, but it's possible. Like I said, we've seen it on the offensive line, so hopefully some of that can transfer to that defensive line because he has to be good for us. We need him. You're a first-round pick that hasn't done jack shit. We need him to be good. We need these high draft picks to be good. And we've drafted well. We've drafted well at basically every position but defensive end over the last, however long. I can't even say that because we drafted Trey Hendrickson. So we've drafted well at defensive end. It's just our first-round draft picks have been dog shit. Oh, I realized just now that I did forget Malcolm Roach. He played well when he was out there. He's a good rotational player. I would also advocate for him to start over, Shy Tuttle, but he's just inconsistent. The defensive tackles just didn't play well as a unit, in my opinion. We gave up way too many rush yards between those guards and center and the inside zone type things. We have to be better next season at that. Have to be much, much better. Tuttle, Onyemata, Kentavious Street, Roach. That's a solid group. Don't get me wrong, that's a solid group, but they didn't play well this year. They definitely were disappointing this year. And it's just unfortunate because we had a good defense this year. We had a good defense. That was the only thing lacking in our defense this year, was stopping that run game. I'm not going to put it all on them, but they definitely have to be better. They definitely were the main culprits, in a bunch. But the defensive line as a whole has to be better. We're going to probably see some major changes. Davenport may not be back. Onyemata may not be back. Some of those other guys may not be back. Cam Jordan's getting older. So defensive line may be turning, to some major changes coming soon. Some guys that play well, like Granderson, may step up next season and get the start. Kentavia Street, he may get the start next season. We'll see how it plays out over the summer. We'll see what we do. But as of now, this was the worst group, in my opinion, on the season, besides the quarterback play. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Trust me. So this was the most disappointing group for me, in my opinion. Let me know what y'all thought about the defensive line group as a whole for the 2022-2023 season. Thank y'all for tuning in once again. As always, this is DaBoot Tragedies.